Welcome to the Sanity Project podcast, where you can awaken your mind to clarity and success even in today's life challenges. We're here to provide insights and solutions that will help you live a sane, healthy, and prosperous life. Here's your host, Joanne Victoria.
Hi, I'm Joanne Victoria, the I Know What Works coach, and I'm the author of 7 books, including Push You for a Moment, Instant Solutions to Everyday Challenges. I'm also the host of the Sanity Project podcast. The Sanity Project podcast is a platform for experts in personal development and business development to share their wisdom and expertise that will help all of our listeners live a sane, healthy, and prosperous life. Our guest today is an amazing woman. Her name is Hadizadeh, and Kathy is a double Masters of Science in Engineering and Management, and she is also a professional certified coach. Kathy Hadizadeh is the founder of Heart Mind Tuning and a former IT executive. Heart Mind Tuning is a coaching and strategic consulting agency focused on personal and professional development for ambitious corporate people willing to take a pause, as I just did, and impact the world in a more meaningful way by connecting to themselves. Kathy is an integral executive coach, a certified mindfulship leader consultant, and an emotional intelligence and brain profile optimization assessor. And I invite Kathy to the podcast today. And hi, how are you doing, Kathy?
I'm doing great, Joanne. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm really grateful that you're here because you have topics that are really important. And since they're about the brain, I'm always entranced about the brain. So today, Kathy is going to talk to us about Brain Hacking 101, Develop Calm to Enhance Performance and Trigger Innovation. And as she says, in the corporate world, in high-stress environments, employees sacrifice their physical, emotional well-being every single day, and I totally concur. So how do we preserve and foster our cognitive ability and innovative power in high-stress environments, Kathy? How can you help our listeners today?
I can help our listeners today by inviting them to look at the subject of stress and what brings up in their feelings, in their emotions, in their mind when they hear the word stress. And together in this episode of this podcast, we are going to make a change in what they see and what they feel when they hear that word. That's our goal.
Got it. So we know stress impacts the brain directly. I mean, the word has got to be changed. You know, the word stress, just say the word and you get stressed. And you say here in the long run, stress changes the physical structure of the brain. So how does it change the physical structure of the brain?
One of the things is that our brain is comprised of different segments. Like anything else, I want to invite you to think about any other experience in your life. For example, if you are doing any kind of exercise at the gym, the muscles that you exercise them more and you pay more attention to them, they get stronger. And the muscles that are more neglected, they get weaker and weaker. Same thing is true about our brain. Whatever we feed it more, it will going to get stronger in our brain, and whatever we feed it less, it's going to get weaker. Now, when I say the formation of our brain, think about it. Our cognitive ability and our executive decision functioning areas of our brain, they require time, space, reflective space to get stronger. And if you are in constant mode of feeding the areas of the brain that are limbic and they are based on fight, flight mechanism, we are feeding a different part of our brain. So over the long haul of life, if we say we live 20, 30, whatever years into our professional world, and we are constantly feeding that reactivity, guess what? the formation of the brain changes in a way that those limbic areas have more to say. They are stronger, and the executive decision functioning areas of the brain are becoming weaker. They are not as responsive as the other areas of the brain. So that's what I mean by changing the formation of the brain. We physically can change how our brain looks like. We can physically do that. And you can see that through fMRI by the accumulation of the blood in the certain areas of your brain when you do the tests.
Is this a part of neuroplasticity?
Well, neuroplasticity is a very big underlying factor to that. The reason is that neuroplasticity allows us to change the brain. So the same way that it can be a positive change, and many people use the neuroplasticity to emphasize that we can change somebody's habits and we can change, things that we don't like. By the same token, in here, neuroplasticity is what allows us to do more of the things that we don't want to have in our brain, to grasp more of that. You're certainly right on that we are absorbing less and less of the things that we want in our brain by exposing ourselves to the stress, constant stress.
Okay. Yeah, I've been reading a lot about neuroplasticity because I also tell people that they've been in the grooves of their brain that are negative to them too long, and they need to make new grooves. And obviously oversimplifying what you're talking about, oversimplifying, because this is not your world, is not my world. Your world of language regarding your Master of Science degrees in double Master of Science degrees is not where I'm coming from. What I'm coming from is sort of and every person's way of looking at it, even though most people are afraid to look at it, that they need to change the way they use their brain. And they need to, if they're using their brain currently for negativity, and I'll just use that word, and it causes stress, then they have to make a change. And I just advise people that if they change their thoughts and change their habits and patterns and how they talk and relate to others and relate to themselves and self-talk, etc., that they might have a different groove in the brain and the other one will shut down. Is that close to reality?
It is, but there is another piece to that.
Okay.
I want to elaborate on that because I love what you shared, Joanne. The subject of positive thinking and positivity is very loved by a lot of people, by the literature, and certainly is an important piece for our brain health and emotional wellness. However, if you look at the reality and if you look at the research, a lot of the people who are after the positivity and positive thinking, they are some of the most negative thinkers in the world. In order to make that change, we can look at it from a cognitive perspective. I see my clients a lot of times are looking at it very cognitively, thinking, oh, I shouldn't be this negative. Oh, I shouldn't be overthinking. Oh, I shouldn't be this perfectionist. A lot of I shouldn't be in there from a cognitive perspective. And there is a desire in them to make the change from a cerebral perspective. However, we can make a change when our cognitive ability is in sync with our emotions, with what we are feeling. And that's the missing piece for a lot of people wanting to make the change. They know they want to make the change. They know it from their mind. Again, this is the brain talking. But they don't know that they need to change how they feel about it too. How does it make them feel when they are positive? They might not even know that. They don't even know what that landscape looks like.
Well, they haven't been there.
They haven't been there. So that's the job. I came up with this term heart-mind tuning for this reason, because at one point in my life, when I was an IT executive and I had to stop and take a pause in my life, I was like, wait a minute. When did I become a person who's all the time thinking so much with their head? I am so head driven. It's always a thinking mind rather than paying attention to how do I feel about things. What happened to my intuition? What happened to my gut feelings? I had lost them along the way. I certainly wasn't that person like 15 years ago before I started my tenure at corporate America. And that was one of the reasons why I came up with this name, because we really have three brains. We have our cognitive brain, we have the neurons in our heart, which is another source of information. Our feelings are the source of our inspirations, and we have our gut brain, our intuition, that feeling of, oh my God, I feel it in my gut, or I don't feel it in my gut, or something is wrong.
Right.
That kind of a thing. So to sum it up, I love the idea of not getting trapped into negative thinking and trying to get out of that. But there is more beside and beyond thinking that goes into that to make it happen for a person.
It's all about emotions. And we can say we are, I'm great, I'm this, I'm that, but if there's no emotion behind it, there's no energy behind it, the recipe is incomplete without an emotional undertone.
True. Because if you're not really connected to something, there is really not much action.
Correct.
With the kind of intention that is needed to really put things into a different direction.
Okay, so what about you have this Brain Hacking 101, develop calm to enhance performance and trigger innovation. What is that about?
That is about the fact that in our corporate world, especially in high stress environments, we have a lot of deadlines. Nobody's immune to the word deadline.
Right.
And we develop a certain relationship with the word stress. We feel like, oh my God, this is stressful. Deadline and stress kind of become synonymous.
Yes.
Now, when it becomes synonymous for us, Joanne, what happens is that even hearing the word is going to have an impact in our body, like somatically speaking. We will feel a reaction in our body.
Mm-hmm.
We might not always pay attention to that, but if we are putting our awareness into that, we sometimes see, oh my God, I can see my blood pressure changing, or I can see my breathing changes when I hear that word. We might be taking more shallow breaths than usual when those kind of things happen. The thing is, when we get into those situations, we are not able to think fully. We are not able to really expand the full notion of how we can think or how we can be innovative, because we are trapped into reactions in our body. We are trapped in the fact that we want to get our deadline done. We are not allowing the creativity to come out, because a creative mind needs peace, needs calm, needs us to be able to breathe and feel like we are breathing, not out of necessity for oxygen, but feeling that, I'm breathing into this and I'm able to think loud. This is the kind of thing that we lose with the stress. So you probably, your audience and you're asking me, so how can we change that?
Yes.
I think that's $1 million question. So one of the biggest things is changing our relationship with the stress. Our society, our literature, a lot of things is really making a monster out of stress. Stress does not make anybody happy. When people say they are stressed, they are like, oh my God, I'm stressed, I'm sad, I'm nervous. There is not a happy connotation coming up with that word. I want to invite everybody that is listening to this podcast to really take a break for a second and say, is that how I feel towards the stress? Do I have any good feelings towards the stress? That would be interesting if they say, yeah, I have a good feeling, because most people I see, they are thinking stress is the worst thing for their life, for their sanity. Now, if we look at the stress is what has made us achieve a lot of things in our lives, go higher and higher in our education, make sure we do not fail that exam, make sure that we are able to go to a job interview and do well in it because we have prepared for it. So there is some positive aspect to the stress. The stress can trigger us to be more alert, to be more vigilant about what we want to get out of our life, out of our career, how we can get to our desired states. However, the important thing is to learn to change that relationship and also be able to recognize when a stress is stronger than us and learn the techniques to bring down the stress in our body right at the moment, and in the long run build a higher tolerance to the stress.
Yeah, this is what happens with people when they say I'm stressed. What is, when, rhetorically I would say, well, what does that mean? Because we have stress from when we're born. Our body is stressed, whether we're born, whatever manner we're born, our body is stressed. Our entire being is stressed out. All right, we're no longer happy. We want to go back inside and hide. And yet there's a birth, there's a human being coming out. So that's a good thing. But everybody uses the word stress and automatically goes to it's negative, and it's not. Because as you said, when people, go to school, want to achieve more in higher education or get an interview with a higher paying job and a better title, that's stressful, but it's good stress. It will produce something good as opposed to, oh, it's going to hurt me.
Absolutely. So that is a step number one, to change our relationship with the word stress. That is an important factor. And then the second step would be, paying attention to our body, to our feelings, and becoming aware of when do I feel stress. Sometimes we do not even pay attention to that. I know that there are people whose hands sweat. I had an employee at one point that she would come to a meeting and I could see how her hands are sweating so much that you can see it after the meeting. She had to go and grab a tissue. These are signs that something is going on and we need to address that. However, for the most people, they have that reaction in their body. They either do not pay attention or they disregard it.
But would you call that stress or fear?
They are kind of related. They can be related, because fear. What is really fear? Fear is something that we make. Fear doesn't really exist in this world. We build fear by telling us stories, and depending on what story we are telling us, that can lead to a stress for us. Right. For example, a person who loses their job. Imagine a person who is a talented software developer, for example. The moment that they tell him, you're laid off, as an example, nobody gets happy in that moment. Nobody, even if they are the most talented person in the universe, they will not be happy, right? And they know they have a good resume, and they know that they have connections, and they know they have worked up their way to wherever or whoever they are. But I bet you, at that moment, they are telling themselves a lot of stories. What if I don't get another job? What if I don't get another job on time? Then I will not have money to pay my mortgage. Then my kids will not have good education. Then I cannot pay for my car. You see the spiral that can happen, which is not true.
It's the story.
It's story.
It's the story.
Exactly.
We always tell ourselves stories, and none of them are true.
Exactly.
We think they're true, and that's what creates this stagnation and stops creativity.
Exactly.
Because you can't think clearly when you're telling yourself a story about something that's, number one, it's done. It's over. That part of your life is over. Now you have to move forward. And the story should maybe be repeated once, because the more you repeat it, the more real it becomes. Because that's all you can think about. I've experienced that with others and myself certainly years ago, but I've experienced that, and you just stop telling the story. It does not. The story does not serve.
Right, exactly. I like what you used, the term that you just used. It does not serve. We have facts and we have stories. And sometimes we get into this spiral of stories that are not serving us, but we get used to them. Like our chemicals in our body, they make a cocktail out of that stress that we are inducing in ourselves, that they are looking for it because we tell ourselves those stories so much that our body is producing that. Our neurotransmitters, our neuropeptides, our glands are all working together, and they are making that cocktail in our body. So in our body, we get used to that story. That's the scary thing. That's the chronic stress. And that is what can physically, not just emotionally, the myriad of emotions, it can physically impact us. People wonder sometimes when they get chronic illnesses, oh, can it be my lifestyle? Absolutely, yes. I don't discount the genetics. I mean, genetics is there. I don't discount the environment, but definitely the way we think, the way we live, the way we look at things, the way we react to things has a very big impact on our bodies and what happens to our bodies.
Well, before we get your final thoughts, I want to remind people that your website is called heartmindtuning.com. That's heart, Heart, mind, MIND, tuning, TUNING.com. And if people want to reach you quickly, they can get you at Kathy at heartmindtuning.com. So, what would you suggest if people are in this place that they have labeled stress, and it's just an all-encompassing word, and it means many different things to many different people because it serves a purpose to shut off outsiders and shut down yourself. So how can they open up and be aware of what the stress truly is, how their story affects their stress, and how they can move forward? For example, this person who was just laid off, what would you suggest that they do to retain their sanity?
I love that question, Joanne. And I can tell you, the first step is the desire to make a change. And that desire needs to come from within. Like somebody's wife or husband or partner, they know that their other half is suffering, but they do not feel their suffering.
Correct.
Nobody can understand our suffering as well as we do. Nobody can be in our emotions, in our thoughts, in our brain that is having like millions of thoughts every day. So it is important that if anybody is listening to this conversation right now, that they realize, do I want to make a change in how I live, where I am, what I'm dealing with? And if they said yes, they need to take action. But that desire needs to exist in them. That wake-up call needs to have happened. This is not something that somebody else can push them and say, hey, go do it. People can give you ideas, for sure, but you have to take the action. They have to take the action. This is the important thing. That proves to them, that proves to their mind, to their body, to their emotions that they are ready to make that change. That the body is the change in that cocktail.
That's what people forget to do. They talk a lot, but they don't take any action. And you've heard it now from Kathy Hadizadeh to take action. Decide what you want. Decide to make a change. And then do it. Create a plan. Do something. One foot in front of the other will help you move forward. We want to thank Kathy Hadizadeh for being here today. Remember, heartmindtuning.com. And when you go to Apple to listen to Kathy, I want you to give her a 5-star review, because this has been an intriguing conversation and entirely beneficial. So that means you have to listen to this podcast over and over again and take notes so you don't miss anything of what Kathy is saying to you. I want to thank Kathy for being here today. It's been an amazing few minutes of her entire life, but I'm grateful that she chose to spend it here with us today. So for those of you who want to know about me, you can go to my website at askjoannevictoria.com, and there's plenty of information, posts that I post every day, and free books and all sorts of things that you can be happy with. Is there anything else you'd like to say, Kathy?
I wanted to thank you for giving me this opportunity to be with your audience. I really appreciate that, Joanne.
Well, I am glad that you're here, and my audience is, whether they know it or not. Just keep re-listening to this podcast, people. Okay, everybody have a great day. Bye now.
Bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Sanity Project podcast. Please go to AskJoanneVictoria.com to listen to more podcasts. Check out Joanne's coaching programs and get a free copy of her report, 5 Steps to Achieve Life-Work Harmony. That's AskJoanneVictoria.com. Take care, and thanks for being here.